Hi, I think I'm live. Yeah, so if you're watching this on VOD, you're seeing this right away. We're going to be talking about making a town based off the same guide that we used to make a village in the last stream. I'm just waiting for chat to come in. I'm gonna share the link, make sure it's places, and we'll get right into it. You know, if things open. If you're enjoying the music, this music is from Brian Metelius, the composer of Fables of Refuge. It's a beautiful track. We called it Joy. It's under our emotional adventure themes. Let's see, did it notify on the Discord? We're playing around with announcement channels and trying to get it way more organized. It did not get posted. Let's see. I should shrink this. There we go. So live chat's a little bit bigger for my eyes. There we go. It's fine. Oh, this is private. No wonder no one's coming in. I'm such a fool. This will be our little secret for everyone who's watching the VOD. You know what? You can jump to this point in the stream, the 2-minute mark. There you go. Welcome to the live stream VOD, and those who are coming in, this is not a VOD, this is a live stream. I'm just saying hello to those who are watching afterwards. I'm still getting used to YouTube's live stream studio setup. It's interesting. How's everyone doing? We're gonna be talking about town building. The last live stream we talked about village building, and we used a city generating grid system to guide us through that workflow, so that way anyone, including myself, can make a village like that. Probably maybe a couple hours of work and you're good. And so I want to try that on a bigger scale. Let's go to towns. Okay, so waiting, double checking to make sure the link got shared. Share, copy link. Gone live. Okay. I know I don't have a stable schedule for this series because tomorrow I'm super busy, and normally I would play this. I would do this live stream on Sundays, but because of my schedule, I need to do it today instead of tomorrow. And I wish I could be consistent. Okay, it did share. Great, great. People will be coming in. Hello, everyone who is here now. We will get started. How do I sound? Can you hear me? You know, I need technical response to gratify what I'm doing. All right. Let's look at some notes to make sure we can do this correctly, because I am an organized bundle of joy, if you didn't know. Wild. Here we go. Hey, Oceans. All right. So, we're going to build a town, and we're going to use the same system that we did to build a village. Let's hop over to split screen so we can look at what we're doing here. Let's see. Split. Just that camera. Great. So we have, I basically copied and pasted from the village builder over here and put it in here. And we'll kind of just try to feel out similar vibes and see if we can make it as streamlined and as simple as we did for village. So this can be a great template for any town you need to make. So for those people who didn't watch Village, the Village live stream, let me just quickly go over some basics and we can kind of add to it. So we have town template, we have sperm with an extra E and extra M that stands for social, political, economic, education, religion, military, and magic. Education and magic aren't necessarily fundamental to a society. Some would argue. I would argue it is, especially magic, because we all need a dream. So those are our main way of organizing what we add and don't add to our town. A village, based off the template that we had over here, you can see that we use that to help organize the priorities and what things are what and how a village runs. A town's going to be way more complex. Remember, our village, our example village, doesn't have a military. Some villages can have a military. This one didn't. Towns are definitely going to have a military. All right. And if you're enjoying the music, it is by Brian Metalios, the composer for Fables of Refuge. This is the Joy track. We have an album for emotional themes and tones in the show, and this is Joy. Okay, so notes. That's Wild Society and Fey Society. We do not need those. We have Common Society, Justice and Crime, and sizes. Then we have the City Generator. Cool. So you can always, I want to make another thing clear, you can always adjust any of these parameters for your own thing. These are just an example. So let's change this to town. Hope the tapping and clicking isn't too much. If it is, I can turn on a NVIDIA. So a village had 100 people. We're gonna say the town has 1,000 people. Makes sense to me. We have about 100 homes. Roughly 400 buildings. 300 buildings outside of homes. That might be wrong. Let's clean some of this out. The 1d6 traveling sheriff would definitely still be there. So we have various outposts, mills, warehouses, and low military. In the 1d6 military, we're gonna change the word military to sheriff. Come on, F. There we go. Somehow these live streams, Toast Nation, always fall when I'm painting. Perfect. So, we have, this was just a note for that village. We can clear that. How many kids? We'll come back to how many kids. No military. Remember, if there is no military in your town, which is very rare, but no military in your village, you do want bandits kind of controlling the space. Wilderness, let's clear that. We will say it's not by a river. Okay, let's pick. Let's pick those categories. So a town would have social, political, definitely be economics. There would be an education in town, or there doesn't have to be. Let me know what you think, if there should be education in this town or not. Religion is extremely likely. We've got military, and should there be magic? That's a very good question. Should there be magic? If there's magic in the town, we can figure out what's going on with that magic. So it kind of has everything in here. It's good to know. That's a lot of work. Imports, and we will figure out what they import in a bit. Figure out what that is. Currency. I have a note. Towns often barter, and we made that rule for villages. So we'll say there's a bartering system is fairly common. Copper, silver, gold is common. Let's say gold is common. Platinum, I would still say it's rare. For a town, platinum would be rare. Oh, do I have a high-pitched feedback? This is a new mic that I've been testing for the last few days. Maybe that's the issue. This cable is also not that well protected from EMT. You can hear it too? Let me give it a test. I would... Where are my headphones? There are my headphones. Alright, we're gonna do some technical checks super quick. Alright. Ignore any extreme feedback you're about to hear. Maybe lower your speakers for a second. hear it. That is EMT. There we go. Is it still there? It is. How about now? Oh, there it is. Hey Johnny, doing some quick mic fixes. I think it's pretty much gone. Cool. I can also sorry about this, everyone. Here we go. We can switch it to that. Okay. All right. Everything should be fine. Yeah, it was electric interference, electric magnetic interference, and that usually comes from the XLR cable being cheaply made and being too close to AC power and just electric transmissions, especially like if you ever take your phone and go over XLR cables, it'll happen. To get, and these cables are kind of cheap ones that you can get from Amazon. If you want proper, good, high quality audio cables, you're going to have to get expensive, like super expensive, what's the brand? Mogami XLR cables. They have extra coating to protect them from electric magnetic interference, and I'm saving up to get some honking cables like that for Fables. Until then, I cleared up around the cable so it's safe, but then as an extra protection, I tossed on NVIDIA RTX voice. So we're all good. Should sound clean. All right. Nick, yeah, this will be available as a VOD as well. All right, so back to the important conversation being, let's build a town. Okay, so this is a good start, and we'll worry about imports and exports in later. Let's figure out what's going on in this town, and we can come back to these specifics. So where is this town? A town would be about 1 week walking or boat distance from a city. I'm reading that. Okay, yeah, so nearby a city and near resources. So an important fact to understand about towns. Villages become towns because they have access to a really good resource that is economically viable. Most towns, from my understanding, happen on crossroads. So there's a lot of traffic happening, a lot of money being spent there. So they naturally grow, and that village becomes a town, and that town will most likely become a city. And a lot of people take that crossroads and they'll land on that city. So a town can be on a crossroad. A town can be at a nearby a body of water, such as a lake, river, or ocean. And then a town can also have be on the edge of wilderness or a mining town, so that basically towns have to provide resources. And if a town becomes a city and another village has become a town closer to that resource, that city will be the central export for that town. So that town is constantly pumping out resources and sending it to that city. Based off the village that we made last time, that village had a river and it was surrounded by wilderness. That wilderness is filled with a lot of danger, but if those citizens can survive that, if they can grow their population a little bit more, and they take care of the wilderness around them, they could become a logging town very easily, and they just send the logs downriver to the closest city. This is kind of how it works. It's a very vague and broad version of how medieval towns and villages worked, but it's a good summary for running a game, you know? If you just want to understand how the world in the back of your head could be working, then that's a great way to approach it. Simple, like, mechanical understanding, if that makes sense. Artificial towns propped up by government spending and strategic reasons, like a forward operating base but bigger. Yeah, there are also those kind of towns. A town can also here's a great example, so I word it correctly for you. Since there are military and there is education in this town, would the education be military focused? So the local military have an influence on what is being taught. If there is a lower amount of military and there's a stronger religion, is the religion there influencing the education? Or is social influencing education, like it did in the village, where where the kids helped forage and learn about the wilderness around them, and the teenagers, the adolescents, helped around working in the town and learning how to build the village a little bit more. So different things will influence each other. Sir Fancy Pant. Hey Cmike, love your stuff. I'm about to die in Curse of Strahd, and my dying wish is to know if you still drink green juice. I still do drink green juice. I don't drink it as much at this moment because I'm not working out as much. Like, look at this. Look at these sticks. Look at these little sticks I got. The green juice was very much a post-workout drink that I would drink every day. So back on this. So yes, that's kind of how you can play with social, political, economic, education, religion, and military, and magic. Same thing could be said about magic, how magic could influence education, or education influences magic. I would say, my personal taste, I would cap magic, saying that maybe there is like a wizard. That's it. Really it. It's a town. You know, if we were in like a major city, there might be more going on with magic. But if everyone has access to magic and the means to become an adventurer, then why would anyone settle for being a farmer? So, other than survival. Purpose, day in the life. So this was the village. Work 6 days a week, living away from the city, surviving mostly off the grid, paying taxes when the regional sheriff showed up. It's going to be slightly adjusted. So what do I have on my notes? Purpose day in the life is collect toll taxes. I'll explain what that is in a second. Protect peasants / citizens. I just put resources, but that's not an action. Collect resources and trade. Great. So collecting toll taxes. This is really where tolls, like driving tolls on highway tolls, have come from. In the past, towns have walls, right? Villages don't usually have walls. So when a village becomes a town, like Sims, a wall will start popping up. And this is a great way how you can really visually explain a town or a village and a city in the game. And I'll get to that too. So when a traveler comes to a town, there is usually a scribe and a couple guards at the gates. What their job is to collect a toll tax from the traveler, and that helps pay for taxes. And they usually, let's see, I have it written down to make sure. Yeah, so travelers have to pay a toll to enter a city, toll taxes. And a toll will be a lifestyle based. So we didn't really have IDs or have classes outside of what we could tell from looking at somebody. So from your clothing, and if the stuff that you have is a lot and really fancy, you're going to get charged more. So how you can translate that to D&D is when traveling to a town, if you're presenting yourself to be poor, you pay 1 silver. A common person, 2 silver. A modest living adventurer, 1 gold. A comfortable person with a servant, maybe a wagon or stuff like that, 2 gold. If you're wealthy, if you just come off as wealthy, like aristocrat, nobles, it's going to be 10 gold. The guards and the military in that town want to make sure they can stay going. And that's it. Understanding that when there's a wall, so a town has a wall, a city has a wall, capital has a wall. And how I work it in my head is each time it steps up, kind of like in a Sims game kind of way. Let's see if I can frame this right. So there's no wall for a village. A town gets 1 wall, and then the town expands. And so it gets a 2nd wall, and that's how it becomes a city. And that inner wall becomes more of the nobles and the people running the town. So there's going to be a lot of construction happening when it expands. And when a city becomes a capital, there's a 3rd wall that pops out. How big it is between those is up to you, but I think in a game design kind of way, where I'm just trying to communicate quick shorthand ideas to feel like it is grounded and interesting, I think that's a great way to approach it. So the town will be, as you can see, 10 times larger than the village. You can't see. Now you can see. The town is 10 times larger than a village. Purpose day of life, collect toll taxes, protect peasants and citizens. Most of the people in the town are going to be peasants. They're going to be, it's going to be low income and merchants and high middle class. There is no high class here. They collect resources. Like I said, the towns are built off the back of having resources be their main purpose of existing. And then trade. You know, got to trade off into the city. Cool. I think I beat that horse to death. One ring wall. See? There we go. Walls. One ring of stone wall. It's got to be stone because that's one, it's cheap, two, it's strong. Obviously, you can fortify it with wooden spikes, a lot of metal work. That'll be very expensive, but stone walls make sense. Let's see, is there anything else I need to toss in here? So I have a list of a few important NPCs. And that's kind of what we're going to transition in and start doing. If we look at the village, we came up with our important NPCs, which help define how we're going to build the town. So let's start tossing in out. Let's start suggesting ideas on who can be in this town, and let's start populating. These are important NPCs that help define the place being built. Magic is like guns. Some societies have more or less. That's a great example. Towns establish safe routes for traders. Yep. Tolls do help maintain roads. A good example is... Let's see where I wrote it, because it was a really good note. Hope I didn't delete it. I was really proud of that note. Oh, here you go. A poor place has muddy roads. A wealthy place has paved and cobblestone roads. Declining, it's paved, but it's broken and needs repair, and no one's really putting any effort into it because can't afford it. It's a good way to remember stuff. What about a military encampment as sort of a temporary town? Like in Roman history, their military was really good at building stuff and would sometimes construct a whole temp settlement. You know what? Next stream we will do that. We'll do I would call that a fortress. As just a main phrase, but yes, let's do that on next stream. Why do you build the village? Or then town and then city? Why not do it the other way around? Because the way I would do it is people would arrive to a location, invest time and energy in there, and if it's worth expanding, then it would expand to a town, and then it would expand to a city because more and more people flood there. Los Angeles was originally a town, a settlement, then a town, and then it grew into a city, and now it's a massive city. Same thing, New York. New York was a settlement, became a fortress, then grew into more of a town and expanded to a city. If you tax rich people more, won't that discourage people going there? So rich people might around the town. They totally might, but it's dangerous on the road. And maybe some noblemen have documentation to protect them from toll taxes. You know? I can imagine a regional duke coming to the town if they wanted to, and they would have the means to say, I don't need to pay taxes because this is my region. All right, so I have not tried Baldur's Gate. Let's toss in some important NPCs. I'll get it started. We have we definitely need some barons. So if you watched my last live stream, I talked about nobles in how I would play nobles in my game. Is there are dukes and barons, and above them are royals. They're just meant to be regional lords and local lords. I just use some terms that are from history. So, barons can be sheriffs, bailiffs, mayors. A town would have definitely a bailiff. So, yeah, bailiff. They would have a mayor. So we can do nobles, leaders, there we go. So a bailiff is basically, for those who don't know, local judge. Now, if it's a simple local dispute, the bailiff takes care of it. They are, for the sake of understanding this, they are a noble. They are local, employed by the sheriff to be a local judge, jury, and executioner. Not the one who swings the axe, but they can condemn you to execution. They're responsible for small local disputes and crimes in their assigned towns and villages, or just a city. Also considered the captain of the local guard. Oh, that's interesting. So I have them as the leader of the guard. They don't have to be the captain, but they can be local tax collection. Okay, so local tax collector for the sheriff. And organizes work for public jobs like road maintenance, training and maintaining local military from citizens, and they often serve as officers in the war. So let's see. Head of the local military and organizing public work. Cool. And then the mayor is elected. In my understanding, a local lord, so I'm going to use the word baron for this, local lord who is elected by the people. Or just chosen by higher nobles. Corruption. Their political power is limited to the walls of their city, but are considered head of state. Works closely with the bailiff on tax collection, record keeping for births, deaths, marriages, real estate, transactions, travelers. During war, they hold both positions as bailiff and mayor, because the bailiff would actually go off being an officer. And then they're in command of the local scribes, so the ones who are taking note of people coming in and paying toll taxes at the gates, nobles who aren't paying taxes, and they have like a couple bodyguards. Elected noble. Let's see. Tax collection. Record keeping. That's fine. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's just leave it at that. Is this town closer to becoming a city or just have become a town from a village? I would say somewhere in the middle. So it's vague. For the sake of this, let's have it just be somewhere in the middle. Like, it's been a bit since it jumped from village to town, and it's got some time before it becomes a city. And then that specific timing of whether it's becoming a city or not, I think once we're done with this, you'll know how to adjust it for when it's the case for your game. It might be relevant to this stream, but do you have any advice on political systems? This is chain of command in Kingdom. I want some diversity between my nations. I have a few ideas. It's a lot of work. I hear you. I'm basing a lot of this off of my common society. I basically just made societies common, fey, and wild. Might have discussed this before, but when will the actual D&D session be? How you leave space for the whole concept of how to create a town and city. Benny, go ahead and explain what you mean by the actual D&D session. So, like, the session that this stuff is going to be used that I'm going to DM? Or, for example, if you were to use this concept, how much time from you pulling this out until the game has to start, if you were the DM? Meanwhile, let's keep going. So we got some local leaders. We have a steward. I don't know if a steward would be a leader. But I'm gonna put them down, just list it off. Stewards. We got scribes. We definitely need some clerics. Innkeepers. And because the sheriff is a 1d6. Since the sheriff is a 1d6, I think we should... The sheriff might have a house in this town or a place to stay. So keep a note for that character. When will you be hosting your next DM session? My next DM session will be soonish, because we're cycling through different adventures in our home game. So we have one person DM, another person DM, and then me. And in one of them, we're in a dungeon crawl. So we're trying to finish that dungeon crawl before we hop to the next person. So as soon as we finish that dungeon, we can hop back into my game and I can start talking about some of this stuff on the channel in relation to my games. And then once I'm ready and able to DM on this channel, then we'll apply all of this logic to that series. Your society can be based on your village, town, city structure, or other way around. If you're doing top-down creation. I mean, true, but how did the city get there? Did they just build a city with not enough people? That's just how my brain works. So any suggestions on some more important NPCs? So we got the guard. Probably have to talk about that. We got innkeepers, we got shopkeepers. So there's probably a blacksmith. Tanner. So let's just do merchants. Crafts. Potion people. Librarian. Okay. So steward, scribes. Education. Steward. Scribes. Librarian. Not really education, but I'll leave that there. Religion. Got clerics. They too would have scribes, but don't need to worry about that too much. Innkeepers, they kind of exist on their own. Sheriff Guard. Resistance. Connor, go ahead and give me some more ideas around resistance and what you're thinking that is. Under religion, midwife, or nurses. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do some nurses. Because there technically aren't doctors in medieval times. You could have a doctor. I'm trying to just have a sense of this. There are no doctors. That's why medicine is wisdom, and why nature is intelligence. Let's see. Because I went down that rabbit hole for a day. So intelligence in nature would be knowing how to treat a diagnosis and what the ingredients are, but you can't determine a diagnosis. Wisdom in medicine, you're able to diagnose people based on signs and symptoms, but you don't know how to treat it. So that's a good mechanical way to see that. So nurses would definitely be able to help diagnose problems, and they would have to go to people who are more educated in how do you treat this. And they would probably keep records, so there'd be a slight blend, but you know, you can keep it that simple too. So potions. Herbalist. Put herbalist and potions kind of together. Farmers. There would be farmers on the outskirts of town. And in a village, we would have 1 to 2 small farms. So proper farmland. Let's say 4 to 6 farms. That's a lot. 2 to 3 farms. We got a baker. Do you medicine if you have magic? I mean, if that's it all depends on that type of a character, right? So steward, scribes, librarian. If there's a librarian, I would put maybe magic user. Local wizard or witch. Local wizard. The word witch can be both a positive, as is like a different gender for wizard, or witch can just be evil wizard. It's up to you. Let's see. Under traders, we got informants and corrupted guard. So here, we can put what's the right word for it? Rebels. Rebel scum. So we can put traders, informants, corrupted guards. Well, we will word that better later. Just gotta pump a bunch of stuff into this. What about doctors that claim to be able to heal but are probably a scam? Okay, so con artist doctors. I would put them as traveling doctors. So I don't think someone who's established in a town would be able to practice that. I think if there is a doctor in a town, they would be proving themselves and have a good track record. Obviously, they don't have to, and you're incorporating a story on how that is very much like he's lying, is not true. Butcher and baker. Okay, let's get butcher. Candle maker, can't get that. Let's be honest. Let's see. Benny, you're making really good points. Economic growth is how a village, at the end of the day, becomes a town. Population follows economy, right? My mustache is just rubbing up against my nose. If a place is making lots of money because a lot of people are coming through, spending it because you have really good resources nearby, or you're on the way to somewhere that a lot of people need to go, you're profiting off that. And a lot of people might want to profit off that too. So people will move in and start trying making more money. So we got blacksmith, entertainment, like a theater or bards. Definitely toss bards slash theater company. Hitman and assassins. Let's toss that in here. Underground is the phrase. Did you know that there's so many S's? Yeah, con artist traveling doctor would be run out of town. But it's good to know that they might show up. They would definitely. I don't know if they would show up in a village. I think village would be their like prime target. Towns, they could risk it. Cities, I think it would be harder in a town than it would be in a city. depending on the military. Radicals. Construction workers, like anyone who would repair buildings or roads. So construction workers, Bailiff would be organizing public work to fix stuff. I don't know. Should that be part of the mayor's job? Maybe. And just give military power, so there's a fist and a hand, you know. Construction workers, I don't think it would be your day-to-day job. I think that would be a seasonal labor. Could be full-time. But I don't see it in the same way as we see carpenters today. How you could make your living off being a carpenter for construction. I should say construction workers, not carpenters. But carpenters would be great construction workers. And we can put construction workers. Homeless? Oh yeah, homeless. Street kids? I will be right back, everyone. Go ahead and keep making some suggestions. I got a phone call I gotta quickly take. I'll be right back. I'm sorry about that, everyone. I have someone picking up PVC pipe for me, so that way I can finally take care of this background and have a really nice setup, or a nicer setup. A florist, absolutely, be so adorable. Fletcher. The rough population of the town is 1,000 people. Now, you don't have to make like a dozen blacksmiths or something like that. So we got our farms. We know that the sheriff shows up. We have the guard. There's a captain of the guard. And a map maker. Sure. I would put the map maker is not an actual like craftsman. I think the map maker would be a dedicated person in the whole like library or something. So let's just call this library. Seamstress and tailor, yes. This town needs another blacksmith. Delivering messages, so like a post office. The post office. So let's think about how that works, right? Since travelers have to pay tax when they come through. Is there a roundabout, like red taped system that makes it annoying? Or do we make the post office function similar to Game of Thrones, where towns, rather than having a messenger on the dangerous road, they tie it to crows or some type of bird to send it to the next town? And if that's the case, the stewards would also function as the post office. And then the messages coming in, scribes are keeping record of that, and new information can update the library and update the map making. Let's see. Phone calls. Starts stretching and flexing with... Oh, yeah. Stable. I would... Let's see. Stable. There'd be a stable right outside town. So... Stable. Outside of town. There would be a stable in town as well. There would definitely be a stable in town, and those are for nobles. Guild post office receiving message transcribes it. Yeah, so we got a local wizard. So let's talk about Mage Guilds, because as a town, I think some guilds should probably be in here. Nothing near what a city or a capital would have, but you would have kind of representatives of that guild. All right, so magic and crime. Magic is common and generally regulated. This is all in my game. Sorcerers and warlocks have been mostly known to be wild cards and have caused the most damage to non-magic folk. Wizards and clerics are more educated, trained to use their magics. Clerics are, in a societal perspective, higher up on the food chain because religion. So let's see. So you could argue, if magic exists and there's a regulated mage guild, when a village starts to become a town and the mage guild learns about it, they send a representative to go to the town and set up shop, right? Local wizard. Member of the Mage Guild. And like 1 to 3 apprentices. 1 to 2. I got you, Benny. It seems there are so many blacksmiths. There should be a blacksmith guild. Well, rather than a blacksmith guild, I would say look at how many crafts and merchants we got going on. I would argue there should be a trades guild. Local merchant. Yeah, like a general goods. So there would be general goods, and then there would be poor and high, poor and wealthy. +1 shovel to make it easier to dig. Artisan guild. I mean, trades artisan. Dario. Dario. I think I'm saying your name correctly. I'm sorry if I don't. We're trying to slap a town together. And then ideally, anyone can use this as a general go-to template for making a town from scratch if they need to make a town for their own game. Trade guild or chamber of commerce. Yeah, and I would say it's. So let's. Wow, we're about to really get into it. Hang on. So there needs to be a rep from the main guild, and there needs to be elected members. Give it 6. That's how the trade or artisans guild will work, and they will be called Chamber of Commerce. If there are cults in the town running things behind the scenes, it's possible. It's extremely possible. I think we can explore that in a bit. I don't think there's enough here to then start putting flaws into it. And flaw, I mean like things that can start knocking it down. People who produce and people who sell. Balance system, both. I agree. Probably more reasons for traffic, but 138 for me. So I think it helps to know and establish the main reason towns and cities erupt. traffic, money traffic, people traffic. It does help Benny. It does help knowing why the town popped up. And that is all dependent on your narrative. Here are the imports and the exports. But I think one of the hardest aspects of world building is understanding, okay, if this is a town, what's in the town? And how does a town generally function? Because running a town, building a town, is not in the day-to-day skill set of an ordinary person who has the time to play Dungeons and Dragons. And it's the whole point of having, source books and adventure books, is Wizards of the Coast or Sandy Peterson or another game designers. They put the time and energy into being that cheat sheet for you, so that way you can go on and make your own thing. And they have their own narratives tied to it. This is kind of that bare bones setup here, is so that way anyone can take this, copy and paste, and fill it with flavor. Housewife. So we got nurses / housewife. One word. Because once you know the reason that the town is exploding, the reason doesn't help you understand how the town would work. But knowing the reason would tell you what you can remove from this list. And removing things from a list is far easier than adding things. Mafia, let's put that underground. There would be crime. Teacher? We do have education. And we did not specify if education is, and we don't have to, but I'll put it here. Education should either be military focused, religion focused, or what's the right word? Not historic? I'll say history. History focused. So that would mean because we need to know what are they being taught most about. This isn't like modern public school where we get a little bit of everything. No, have a school is a big deal. Nobles would understand that, and they would know how to capitalize on that. Right, so education would be the bare bones approach. Like, oh, you have a kid, you could send them to the school or to the church or to whatever. But is the bailiff more, as a personality, is the bailiff more influential than the mayor? If the bailiff who works for a sheriff and is head of military, would it be more beneficial to the bailiff that children are taught how to be good soldiers? If the mayor is good at standing his ground working with the bailiff, could he push to just have history and just social education? History/social. That's the word. Or is the local cleric and you know the cleric, I guess the cleric guild, the guild that is the religious temple in your region, do they have a strong influence? And therefore the school has to teach X religion, and the clerics will let their guild know if towns are or are not doing that. And that's why I think education, you have to think about, are they more military, more religion, or more social? They can be a little bit of each, but they're probably going to be one or two kind of combo more than just a little bit of everything. Let's see. Your village deals in raw resources. Towns do low to medium level of transportation or transformation of those goods to make higher end products, and cities import those goods. That is a great note. Shadow 9, that is a great note. Let's... I'm just gonna copy and paste that comment because it's a good note to have. Villages do collect resources more than towns, but a town that's built off the back of like a mine, it's still collecting resources. It's also transforming those resources to be exported as well. Next level thought, Benny. How is and has been the relationship with the neighboring towns, cities, possibly the nation? That's another thing you can take into account. So the general concept being you can't rule more than like 2 weeks away from yourself, right? So the capital can't rule more than a couple weeks out, a couple weeks worth of travel to get somewhere. So from a capital, you get mostly cities, maybe with a couple towns in between, but from there you're getting towns and villages. So if you think spherically, that's kind of how regions generally work. Relationships between towns are, I think, mostly flavor. That though it can come off as it's not just flavor, it is structure, because one town can be a mining town, which is getting a lot of attention from the local city and is considered far more valuable, while another town is dealing with the next town over is a coastal town, and that town is doing a lot of trading overseas, and they have a very specific relationship. And you can go further into that 100%. And I should clarify, let's clarify that. Town. I'm gonna say inland. Reason of that, I have a note about that. See, I write as much as I can down, so I don't have to keep it up here. Inland cities and towns are prominent, have a prominent language, a local culture, and are mindful of outsiders. Coastal towns and cities, wide variety of cultures, languages, and trade. That makes sense. So no fishermen in this town. See. Okay, so we got a lot of stuff going on here. Let's try to organize this. So we got the craftsman, which is also the trades and the artisan guild. kind of have a simple, quick structure of how the guild operates in a town. There's a rep, and there's a few elected members that are local members. Blacksmith, tanner. Obviously, you can have multiple blacksmiths. The odds are your players aren't going to go to one blacksmith and go, do you have this? No. They go to another one. Do you have this? Odds are super low. You can say there's a few blacksmiths in town. Is there something specific you want to go to and get? And the player will obviously explain what they kind of want. You just send them to the blacksmith that you have prepared, and you just make a note super quick on what they don't have to make them sound a little bit more aristocrat or more poor. No fisherman or harbor for this one, because I do. Here, let me try this then. Let me get rid of inland here, and farmers. If it's inland, it'd be 3 to 4 farms. You know, and you don't have to know what the heck those farms are doing unless you really want to. Coastal, I'll say like 1 to 3 farms. All you need to know about these farms are maybe a primary crop that they provide to the local town. At most. That's all you'll need. Here's a question for everyone. What is the population of the local guard? A cool idea that I have is kind of taking a note from currency in D&D and say that guards wear shiny silver or silver-like armor, and those are guards in towns. Captain of the guards have gold on their armor. If you get to a city, the guard, you can have that same philosophy. There's silver, gold, and then you can have royal guards have platinum armor. And then you can kind of just build a structure based off how we see currency. Copper, I don't know. I think the only thing underneath silver armor is leather. So that would be a waste of material. But let's see. Local guards. Town guard can have leather and steel. City guards and captains have steel with golden decoration. And then royal are like full-on gold with decoration. This is a fun note. It's unnecessary to have here, but that's where my brain just went. Gold is extremely expensive. So about 5% of the population should be the guards. Let's see. And the captain, who is also a knight. You make him a knight because, or her a knight, so that way they have a fundamental mechanical reason to be lawful, according to the general public. Inland, what's the source of water? Well, if there is no local river cutting through the town, and yes, most towns have rivers, some don't. If they don't have a local source of water or river, I would say there's probably a well. We can actually make a note of this. Sensei, let's talk about resources. Clean water, which comes from well, river, lake. It's kind of the, or they could be super super clever and rain collecting. I'm scrolling back down through the chat. Guards are made of money. Let's see, this goes back to what we're talking about. What rules education, I would say. Kevin, explain. Sadly, I don't remember what you're referring to, but I would love to know more. Any tips for settlement distribution? I used World Engine to generate my last few worlds, but the actual spacing of settlements. So the spacing of settlements, I wouldn't do miles. I don't think that is beneficial when playing D&D. Miles and pounds need to leave the game. I think what's more valuable is understanding a abstract distance. So how long does it take to get somewhere? I would say 1, most 2 weeks to get from one town to another. And you can, so that way you have days now, right? So you're using days as a distance. And with days you can roll travel turns per day to see what kind of encounters they're dealing with every single day. Or if it's a week, or if it's like a couple weeks, you can go, what happened this week? What happened this week? I honestly think like movement, when it comes to feats and miles and stuff, it can help determine the speed at which you travel. But I think it's too literal when the rest of the game is abstract. That's why I also like the load system rather than the pound system. So that means the load system basically is your strength ability score equals how many loads you can carry. Load is an abstract weight system. A one-handed item is generally 1 load. A two-handed item is essentially 2 loads. If you're looking at like stacking small items to get to a load, you would use your intelligence modifier. That's how many items. stack to get to one load, and that's determined on any individual person. So it uses the character sheet versus abstract, literal math. So yeah, that's how it would do distribution. It would be via weeks. Tops 2 weeks, average is 1 week. We have done anything with guild halls. We haven't touched guilds that much. We have a member of the Mage Guild. We have Artisans and Trades Guild. I'm scrolling through the chat. Make them war hero, resources, food. Food is coming from farms and any imports. We have traveling. Like a town can establish some imports from another town, you know, and those two towns would then, there'd be a dependent system, and if something falls, there's a quest available. Have you ever played Kingdom Come? I have not. See, there's 1,000 people. There are 200 guards. You do 100. I'm down for 100 guards. Really? So here's the thing about the minutia of how many guards are in your town. You do not need to know exactly how many guards you need. You just need a rough estimate. The reason for that would be you're not dealing with all the guards all at once, you know? You have Lucy, wine. Cheese. Who would make cheese? Eat cheese. You come from a farm. And the only time large number of guards you need to know about is if you're doing a heist, if you're doing a attack and defend quest, the town is under siege. That's when the DM needs to know how many guards are running around, because the players will want to know what that number is. It's because that's become a resource, whether it's protagonist resource or an antagonistic resource. So having a template of 1,000 people live in this town, and about 100, I'm gonna make 150, about 150 of those 1,000 are guards, and there's one captain. Having that basic information written down for yourself allows you to say yes and far more times to your players. You're able to, they're like, I want to do a heist. You go, okay, you can let things exponentially grow and just get out of control because you have the grounded fundamentals to keep it flowing correctly. If what the players are doing escalates to that underground resistance to explode or work for the mafia, this number that you know about is vital to those moments for you to say confidently, yeah, go for it. Because you're ready, you're prepared. You have a template that you can build off in the moment. You know what? I do like 200 more than I do like 100. I like 200. 200 makes sense. If the town is smaller, yeah, let me make a note because Bernie was really smart about this. 5%, 5% of Total population rounded up. Guards supplemented by militia. There would be corrupted guards if you want that. Underground flavor. You could have corrupted guards. A guard would not be a part of a militia. Unless they're corrupted. How do I explain that? Because being a guard is a pathway to nobility, right? Which means a better life. So being a guard is a very important responsibility, a very tough job, but also you have a priority, the nobles. And a corrupted guard would be the opposite of that. A corrupted guard would be a guard of the people. Somebody who doesn't follow orders, somebody who's helping the average person get by. That would be a corrupted guard. Yeah, that's a little bit of a rant. 55, thank you. 55 of total, 5% of the total population rounded up. Coastals would have salt fish, salt net. So it wouldn't be farmed. But we can put some coastal. Salted fish. A lot of fish. Salt net. Chickens. Cattle. Goat. Goat would be here because they're cheaper. Let's put pigs here. It's a good example. Chickens and goats would be on coastal. Cattle wouldn't. It wouldn't make sense. Nor pigs. They require too many calories to be on a coastal. And dried aged meat jerky. Jerky, yeah. Let's you can obviously put jerky anywhere you want, but salt and fish being in the coastal area, jerky would be a good place to get. Jerky would be a good thing to get on coastal areas. And these limitations, like, they're flexible, but limitations help you control what you want to do and explain. Here you go. Totally butchered that word. That's not correct. Come on, Google. Benny. Looks like a little bit off topic, but okay. Benny, you're super polite and super kind. Thank you so much. You have a good night. Cyclops, we're building a town. Alright, so. It's a lot of important stuff. Let's try to boil this down super quick. Religion, a cleric. Nurse and housewife, locals. Cleric can be either local or missionary? Guild member from the city. Scribes. One to two. Scribes. One, two. No. If they're taking in mail, 2 to 3. 1 to 2 apprentices. Stewards. You know what? A steward of the town would probably be the librarian, the wizard. So this might be the wizard. That's a good note. Innkeepers. So here is a historical thing that I find extremely interesting that's not mentioned in the game. Similar to like toll taxes, when you travel to a town in medieval times, when you do, and usually to get into a town, you need someone to host you because travelers aren't really trusted. Coastal, they're a little bit more lenient on this, but inland, they're very strict about this. Is if you don't have a host, someone in town, probably like the noble or the blacksmith, somebody very important to the town, to vouch for you, then when you come into the town, your host is the innkeeper. And what that kind of means is your host, if you do something wrong in the town, if you break the local laws, your host suffers repercussions for that. If your host is of noble birth, they probably have to pay a fine to cover your damages. If your host is the blacksmith, like you're on a quest with the blacksmith and you have to keep coming in and out, that blacksmith will suffer the legal punishments of the crime, which could be death, you know? And in most cases, if you don't have a host, the innkeeper is your host, which gives such good motivation for all innkeepers to be hard asses and lawful and keep troublemakers out of their business because they don't want to be responsible for your bullshit. When I learned about that, I thought that was extremely interesting. And I think not a lot of people understand that. And that makes innkeepers so important. And at the inn, you would have innkeeper, cook / server, and a janitor. I know those aren't the right words to use, but that's what would happen at an inn. An inn is social, economic. It's kind of just neutral that way, right? Yeah. And I guess there is a hint of politics because the mayor, who's in charge of knowing where people are coming and going, like travelers, bartender. Yeah, let's use cook, server, bartender. Honestly, those 4 NPCs will probably be talked to the most in your entire town. If the mayor is in charge of keeping track of travelers, because let's say the sheriff comes to town and the sheriff has heard about these adventurers who are kind of causing trouble in this one spot, and what they learned, they were heading this way. Can he ask the mayor for some papers to confirm that they came here? The mayor would see, yes, they did show up, they paid the toll tax, so they entered the town. A scribe noted that they exited. Where were they while they were in town? Did they have a host? They didn't have a host, so they probably went to an inn. Okay, which inn did they stay in? Okay, they go to the inn, and that innkeeper needs to have a ledger. That ledger would let that innkeeper respectfully tell the political officials, yeah, they stayed here for a couple nights, and can kind of ask the employees, what were they kind of ordering? Did you hear them say that they would go do anything? You know? I would imagine that's how a regional investigation would come down to looking for your party members. So an inn would have some political value. Bards, stable, craftsman. Okay, craftsman. Economic. You know what? You could put education. Because you could have apprentices. Let's see. Religion. Obviously, that's religion. I don't want to spoil that for anyone, but it's religion. But if there is a guild member as a cleric, like if you have a clergy guild, essentially, which I do, politics. Would a church, let me just try the word church. Would a church be economic? If there is a guild around clergy, wouldn't one of the priorities to have an economic backbone? Or do they benefit off taxes? Tell me in the comments and chat. Let's see, we got library, so that's social. That's education. Oh yeah, there would be education in here at the church. Education. Politics. Magic. That's a library is where you would have magic. 100%. Let's see. Prostitutes. You can add prostitutes, absolutely. Let's put that down here. Fun fact about prostitutes, keeping this story completely PG. I heard somewhere that historically what you would do with prostitutes is you would bleach their hair blonde. So that way, dirty bleached blonde hair was a sign of a prostitute. It's not the case for, all cultures and all points of history. But that was a fun fact, which kind of just shows that, if you wanted a regulated, taxed prostitution, then you want them to stand out, whether it's a specific type of hairstyle or specific type of clothing. They definitely would be limited to a specific area. They wouldn't just be able to wander everywhere, not because you're not allowed to, but if the prostitutes are regulated and they have a license, then they would want to stay nearby the big house, so that way, if something goes wrong, they're in their area. Does that make sense? They're close by. Charity. Yeah, so let's make a note on the church. So we have charity. Only pays taxes to guild and directly to the sheriff. If the sheriff asks for it. Because you remember what a sheriff is. This is semi-accurate. An unsupervised traveling enforcer of the law, traveling across the region, charged with collecting taxes and enforcing region-wide justice. Ordering and paying rewards to death warrants without royal approval, provided that the subject is not noble. If it's a nobility case, the arrest warrant has to be sworn by a royal court, where the king and queen would decide the fate. The sheriff is also tasked with protecting all royal buildings and estates within their jurisdiction. And I have a note here. A sheriff, they're not traveling with this, but a sheriff would be in command of about 200 soldiers. So if the sheriff shows up to town and there's a lot of trouble, let's say the sheriff, if a town is being sieged and a town has about 200 soldiers, if they're being sieged, a message goes out to the regional sheriff. The regional sheriff, as a DM, you can say, is going to take 1d4 days to get there. And the sheriff will get there with an army of 200, doubling the forces of the town. It's pretty simple mechanics that can, I feel like, helps guide the roleplay of a war game. People do speak more to a prostitute than a clergy member. Parks and Rec area. So we'll get to Parks and Rec in a second. Because that's public work. Let's see. Bards and theater company be kind of entertainment. So social? It's kind of all their purposes. They wouldn't be making a lot of money. Like, the entertainment industry today makes far more money than it has ever done in human history. Farmers. Can't even tell. Military. Put some education in there because you might have squires. Free squires. Okay. Am I missing anything? We've covered all of these, right? Yeah. The town is... I think now the town is technically functional. How it functions and what's the priorities, I don't know yet, but I know that it's functional. And if a player wants to explore a specific aspect of the town, I have enough here as groundwork to say yes and. Right. Shadow, the 10% of the force is being sent everywhere. I agree. I just, rather than doing that math up front, I would just say 200 people are coming because the sheriff, he collected 200 people. I would just put that because he's a regional sheriff, so if a town was to be sieged, he or she is gathering those forces, and they're coming with 200. Social and culture, you'd have, yep. Let's see, likely they have musicians, piano, yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so this is all set. Now let's visualize this place. Oh, we didn't. It doesn't matter how many kids. Let's say there's about like 100 kids. There's 50 kids in town. I don't know. Probably wrong, but it makes more sense to worry about how many kids there are in a village than there is a town, especially when you're dealing with thousands of people. Okay, so we're gonna erase these colors. Start fresh. Whoops. Cool. Insert row below, insert column to the right. So before we get to a map, like what we would normally associate as a well-drawn map, we're going to use a grid system. This is from Dungeon Crafts, Professor Dungeon Master. He has a great city generator, which we're going to rely on. We did this with our village building, shrinking it down to a 3x3, and using the surrounding, kind of establishing your general layout. The village is meant to be small, and you can kind of pop this around, and your player characters can enter the village or town or city in any direction. But this gives you a general layout before you try to draw it down. In his city grid, he uses 4x4. So in towns, we're going to use 4x4 as well. And we'll come back to that. So let's just delete this bigger one for now. The key thing to remember is the outer line of the grid is the wall. I wonder if no, I can't adjust that. Oh well. So we will take things that we have down here generally and plop them in here. I have bring this up for everyone. generator. That way it's not just my my paper. You can see this too. All right, so this is what it's the baseline idea of the city generator is. So you can randomly roll to build your city. We're going to take this. Okay, that's what I thought. There we go. Cool. So now we're dealing with districts and landmarks. So based off everything we've learned and built together here, we're going to use this information to help guide this system. So docks, ocean, river, lake. Residential, we got poor, working class, taverns, inns, pub. So let's ask where the gates are. You know, we're gonna see how this goes. See how this goes. Looking at my dice, there's so many dice. Oh. Just need 1d12. There it is. All right. 10. All right. First thing that the players enter this town, so it'll be number 10, Comfort Residential Wealthy Fountain. It's a merchant's artisan area. So they come in here. So based off what we have in here, right? Does this make sense? Fountain. It's a landmark. It's a fountain. It's a wealthy residential area. Nobility. I wouldn't say a palace for this. Palace doesn't make quite sense. I would say a manor. One. Correct. So if it is a crossroads, it can be a crossroads. So if it is a crossroads, they'll probably, so we need gates. So let's say, here's a gate, here's a gate, here's a gate. Nope, there's a gate, there's a gate. Too many gates. Makes sense that these would actually be close to each other. So we did roll a 10. So where is they come in? Let's say they're coming in from the north. And let's see, are by gates and docks. Roll a die to help build this. What did I get? I got a 7. 10 and a 7. So we got parks, theater, and wealthy people. So I would argue that the whole point is modest would be in between comfort, like adjacent wise. They cannot be too high or too far. So we got working class people. Working class residentials would be there. And let's see. So we got working class there. Who would be over here in the corner? I think that would be wealthy. Meat packing. Let's see. So we got the wealthy can be up here in this corner. They're protected by the guards. We have commoners would not be right there then. If wealthy are there, but we can have 10 and 9. Then we can fill in parks, public baths. And this is considered a line between the poor. So let's put a 7 over here. Put an 8 here for those modest workers. And 7's there. Merchants would go there. And where would, the question being, wouldn't wealthy be in the middle most protected? They can be, they don't have to be. I do have it here as a guideline though. Here, let's try this. Let's see that option too. Super easy. Let's toss 12 right in the middle. And which direction should the poor be? North, south, or east? Or west? Pick a direction. We're gonna put the poor somewhere. I see east. So the poor are going to be somewhere over here. So let's put that there. We got poor. This is a city, and we don't necessarily, we might not need some of these since this is meant for a city. There's a lot. It would definitely be far away from the rich. Let's see. So waterfront warehouses, they would be docks and gate. So put a 2 here, put a 2 there. That makes way more sense. Put a 2 over there. Residential poor is 3. Put 3 here. I don't know if we need 1. I feel like this is more of a city thing than it is a town thing. Unless someone can come up with a better third poor. Common. So residential working, so there's taverns and inn. I would say that'd be pretty close to these gates. Or we go through there. So we got the riches in the middle. Your docks would lead to the warehouses. Then your poor residential. I need to work be close. Correct. So military are near the docks. I think we also just have too many military. Let's clear that up. Warehouses are also our docks / gates. So 2 is a gate. Yeah, I like that. 2 and 2 is there. Moving that 12 around. Your markets after the poor residential. Again, to be close to where food is coming in. True. And the 6, 7, and 8 are definitely the line between rich and poor. So let's get rid of the rich. 4 is going to be on the right. Do we have enough residential for poor? I think poor would definitely live there. We will want... working class, and we can put a 6 if it's a crossroads, right? Let's say the crossroads meet over here and meet here for the road, rather than being a classic perfect X in the middle. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can come in here, come out over here. You do whatever you want. I'm actually going to move the 12 to not be in the middle. And I'm going to put park and theater. We're going to put six is also City Hall. Let's put the theater there. So we have our Bard's Company over there. Then 9, the university or library. So this would be where our wizard is, and they're receiving mail. They would not. They are supposed to be a line between the poor and the rich. And no, they're not. Absolutely not. They could be wherever they want. They would just normally be close to 8 or 6. Okay, so 9 can be right there. 9 can also be over here. That makes a lot more sense. The church be here. And wealthy fountain merchants, artisans, adventurers, common high wealth. If there is a place for known adventurers, artists, and merchants of higher nobility they would be right next to the wealthy manors. 100%. No, they wouldn't. Let's do that. Put a garden between them. Or put the garden here and the wizard and the library and the wizard right there. Because nobles would want to know, hey, library, more education, what's going on, what's the messages? And then they would pass by to go to the shop. And by the shop, there's the church. And that shop area is also residential. So 9 and 10 being residential, wealthy, they would be able to go to the church very easily, or to the normal merchants. So 10 being the wealthy merchants, 6 being the normal merchants. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're missing more poor. We can have, so this is an interesting spot, right? So we have 2 3s, we have 1 4, and we have 2 slots open. We can easily be tossing in. We can easily toss in 2 more 4s, which is Commonwealth. So it's kind of a good wealthy town. You can also have only 1 corner. You know, you could put the 3 there and put the 4 there. Whatever you want. You can also just put the 1 there. And so this is kind of this is the slummish part of town. Sure, this gate is poor, but it's not residential, it's commercial. And well, that is commercial. What is technically commercial? I don't like meatpacking being it, or landmark being slaughterhouse. Give me a type and a landmark for commercial. Because common is just commercial across the board and residential. Let's see. We have it's commerce and commerce. So this one could easily be a 4 or a 3. Let's see, a type, poor commercial. Someone asked for a brothel before. Landmark, the brothel. Type, docks, poor. Mercantile. What is a poor type? Wealthy. Slums? Let's use the word slums. Thieves Guild would exist there. Male knowledge. Mage Guild. Oh, religion is near the center. That's an interesting guideline. 11 needs to be closer to the center. Okay. If 11 needs to be closer, this is the merchant, and so is this. They can swap. I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, let's delete this town. Okay. So we got center of type, we got wealth, nearby docks. Thieves Guild or underground. Underground. You know, the underground. Crime. It's a line between. So 6 being right here. Oh, that makes sense. 6 is pretty. It's pretty nice to have 6 next to 5. The reason being, 6 is your merchant guilds. So like we were saying down here, we have a trade and artisans guild, right? That represents all these guys, and there's the Chamber of the Commerce. They would be chilling right here. Number 6. And there's City Hall there. There's banks, if there's a banking system. And that is right next to a guard's post. And just beyond them is the wealthy fountain. No, the landmark. It is merchants, artisans, adventurers, common high wealth. So this is just the common high wealth people. It's a place where adventurers would stay if they're of like renown status. 6 can be next to 10. Yep. Swap 11 and 4. If we put 4 would be extremely close to 12 at that point. But we could swap 4 and 5 and putting a guard post more in the middle. Then you have these two competing powers right next to each other. Point being, before we get too deep into it, because you can tweak this forever. You can absolutely keep tweaking this. Point being is, we just built a town. You know, first hour of the stream, first hour and a half of the stream, we kind of just went through the nitty and gritty, thinking about who's in this town. The craftsmen, the inn, the church, the library, the leaders. And we talked about the military in here. We kind of just went through the works, right? And once the point of doing that kind of work is to help visualize it in your head, kind of give some micro details to the macro paintbrush. And then we do this, which is the macro brush. I always recommend doing the micro sketches down here, getting the nitty and gritty. But you can doing that first. You can always do this first if that helps you, doing those broad strokes. So this is limited by a 4x4. If we were to do, we can always make it a bigger city, a bigger town by adding one more row to the right or one column up, you know? And we could even just go 5x5, absolutely. But just know, when you do a city, you're going to want to go a little bit bigger. You don't have to go too big. But, you know, if we're going to cap ourselves at a 4x4 for a town and a 3x3 for a village, we can easily say to ourselves on the next live stream when we do a city build, we can do a 5x5. And I think the city is going to be very simple expansion from this than it would be starting over compared to the village, because the village just functions differently than a town. And so a city is just an expansion to the town. So yeah, I hope. Now, we didn't even go over imports and exports, but we did know they need resource. So clean water is a resource. I have a list. Because of course I do. On note cards. No, I don't. I lied to myself. We have let's see if I just type in this search. Maybe I can bring it up. Make a town. I think that's it. Oh, sweet. So this is an old document I was tinkering around with. Ta-da! So if you wanted to come up with trade ideas, what resources does your town have? You know, that's a list to make resources. But yeah, other than clean water, they need another resource. They need to have something that they offer to the local economy, whether it is minerals from the mine, lumber from the forest. They're in a sweet spot between a trade route, or there are towns that just exist for no reason. They do exist. But you know what? Most of the time, you probably don't even need to know exactly what that main resource is. I'm going to be very honest. You probably don't need to know, because the players aren't going to be invested in that unless you have a mystery, a political game, or the quest is built around that resource. And if so, then you clearly know what you want that resource to be, and you know what that plot should be. We had farms, right? But you said one crop per farm. So they need to import other things like fruit. They do have to import other things like fruit. Imports. So food not grown locally. Fertilizer. Well, you can make fertilizer pretty easy. You just need to. You need manure and worms. So if you feed worms half compost, half dirt, they produce fertilizer. So yeah, I think this is a great template for anyone who wants to make a town. You know, if you need to make a town for your next game, I'll clean this up so it's not like 2 and a third page. But I'll have this linked in the Discord, so that way if you want a quick template to build a town, you can obviously change any of these numbers and details. Make no magic in your town. There's no military in the town. Totally fine. And important NPCs. If you need NPCs, think about these aspects of the town: your economic, education, your social, your politics, your political, and gauge that off of this. That it's going to guide you so much. It's helped me do my first few sessions so much, breaking down NPCs, structures of the town in ways like this. That way I don't need the module to tell me exactly what everything is and what everything does. That this template is a great tracer. Yeah, so thank you so much for chilling with me. Went a bit longer. No, it's about the same length. Yeah, I'm excited for the next one. The next one's going to be, we're going to tackle a city. And it's not going to be that different, but structurally, it's not going to be that different. There's going to be more lawful stuff in there. Bigger military, bigger population. And a city is going to have a lot of guild activity. A lot. I know we scattered guild stuff across here, like craftsmen, the library, the church. You don't need that in a town. In a city, you 100% will. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for chilling with me. Yeah, I'll get this cleaned up and put on the Discord under the homebrew category as fast as I can. I'll probably get to it tomorrow. And if you're watching this as a VOD after the fact, hey man, you made it through a 2.5 hour long VOD. Congrats. I hope you're doing well. I hope everything that I've said here and all the recommendations from the chat have inspired you, motivated you to start world building some more and try world building in a not exact, literal, classical sense, but try some abstract outlining before you put, the ink to the paper. I was about to say, where in the Discord will this be? Yes, perfect. Yeah, it'll be under the homebrew category where everyone talks about different aspects of homebrew. And yeah, this is going to be part in the world building. Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right. I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a good day, rest of your night, wherever you are. Stay safe. Say hi to your neighbor. Community is important, as is in world building. And don't forget to count your THACO, because it's important to crunch numbers. Good night.